Joining me right now in a Fox Business exclusive is the Treasury Secretary of the United States, Secretary Steven Mnuchin. Great to see you, Secretary.
Great to see you as well,
Maria. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Your reaction to really what seems like now a unanimous feeling that a slowdown is on the horizon.
Well, Maria, from everything we see, the U.S. economy is still quite strong. Companies are doing quite well, and we see still tremendous investment in capital and human investments. There's no question that as it relates to Europe and China, there is a slowdown. We're monitoring that carefully, but we still see a tremendous opportunity and a lot of capital coming into the U.S.
The Federal Reserve basically told us that they're on pause. They may even pause the balance sheet unwind, which is also telling us that the Fed is also expecting a slowdown. But do you believe a recession is on the horizon in 2020, even though you're seeing strength and stability so far?
We see no indications whatsoever of a recession on the horizon. And from everything we see from speaking to a large across-the-board businesses, the combination of tax reform, regulatory relief, and trade still has a very strong impact on the U.S. economy.
And some people are saying that the impact certainly of trade and tariffs is causing some uncertainty. So how much of this slowdown that we're expecting later on, even if it's not right now, is due to what you say you're watching China and Europe, and how much of it is uncertainty around the president's tariffs program?
Well, Maria, as you said, there are people who expect a slowdown, but I would just comment a year ago, the projections were at 2.5%, and we were at 3%. We feel very comfortable we're going to hit 3% for last year, and we think there's still a very good case for 3% this year. Now, as it relates to trade, we couldn't be more pleased with the USMCA. We're looking forward to Congress passing that quickly. That's a very important trade deal. We have 2 days of talks with China starting tomorrow. The president is going to be involved in those talks at the conclusion. We've been updating him. We have another 30 days after this. So I think we're making significant progress, and I think on the trade front, these are all very positive impacts for the U.S. economy.
Let me ask you about the trade talks, because this story of China, first off, thank you to the president and to the administration for pushing back on China, because that's another unanimous feeling out there that the president did the right thing in terms of stopping China from some of its practices. What are you expecting out of these talks?
Well, the president wants fair trade with China. It's got to be reciprocal. Right now, China has free access into our markets, and we have limited access to theirs. So the critical issues that we've talked about is market access, making sure there aren't forced joint ventures, not forced transfer of technology, and that we have a mechanism that when we reach an agreement that we can monitor this agreement and that they'll live up to it. And that's, I expect, we'll make significant progress this week on those issues.
How much of a priority is espionage? Obviously, the administration unveiling a sweeping set of criminal charges against Huawei Technologies. We've had on a number of CEOs that have said, yes, they've stolen trade secrets from us. Has this come into the conversation with your Chinese leadership?
No, let me be clear. Those are separate issues, and that's a separate dialogue. So as it relates to the Huawei issues, that's being run by the Justice Department. I have no involvement in that. I found out about that yesterday when it was announced. So those are not part of trade discussions. Forced technology issues are part of trade discussions, but any issues as it relates to violation of U.S. law or U.S. sanctions are going through a separate track, which is the Justice Department.
I mean, I guess the broader issue is this a cultural thing in China? I mean, this weekend on Sunday Morning Futures over on Fox News, I spoke with the ranking member of the Intel Committee, House Intel Committee, Devin Nunes, and he went through some of the practices that China does every day. Listen to this. I've got to get your reaction. China might have accessed Allied intelligence shared with Poland and then passed it on to Moscow.
What the Chinese are doing is that they have these companies that are essentially owned by the party, the Communist Party. And essentially this is a dictatorship. There's very few people that own these companies. They weaponize them. So when all over the world, you have Chinese technology, specifically as it relates to infrastructure, on communications infrastructure. They'll go in and they beat every other company around the world. And in fact, they've driven a lot of companies out of business because they come in and undercut. They want to have control over all the comm systems, the communication systems all over the globe.
That's pretty incredible. We will handle your infrastructure of telecom, and then they have a way in of spying. How can you separate that from the conversation on trade and on forced transfer of technology?
Maria, I think you can easily separate these issues. So there are two different issues. One is an issue of state subsidies, where they do subsidize state enterprises that compete unfairly. Those are trade issues. Those are violations of the WTO, and that's something from an economic standpoint we are going to enforce very seriously. I think you know I'm on the National Security Council, so I'm going to be careful what I say on national security issues, but I assure you, whether it's China or anyone else in the world, our security services, DHS, and others will make sure that we protect the U.S. infrastructure, we protect from cyber attacks. That's something we're very well aware of, but these are separate issues and shouldn't be confused. So we are focused on what are unfair economic practices.
So the best case that you can get from China is what? Opening up their markets? Already we are seeing some likelihood of that. UBS, I guess, was the first bank that was allowed to operate in China and own 51% of that bank. They say they're going to go to 100% in 3 years. Are you seeing a significant opening in terms of the Chinese willingness to open their markets to foreigners?
I do, but I think that's a good start. But why should we have to wait 3 years for a U.S. company to own 100% in the financial services? China can operate and own 100% of companies here. So that's an example where, you know, they're moving in the right direction. We want to speed that up. But the issue is really we want to make sure that U.S. companies can compete fairly in China. And if we can do that, China has a very large growing middle class. It's an enormous market. As I've said before, this is one of the biggest opportunities for U.S. companies and U.S. business if we can get this right. And President Trump is determined. This is the first administration that has aggressively said to China, you need to play fair.
Is the president willing to drop all tariffs should you get a good deal that's acceptable?
I think everything's on the table. So the president will look at, again, the objective is to have a very fair deal. Hopefully we'll make progress this week. The president will be involved in these negotiations and discussions, and we still got a lot of work to do.
But the president said, look, I'm a tariff guy. I like tariffs. So does that mean these tariffs are for, you know, no end in sight, or would he be willing to drop the tariffs altogether?
The president hasn't made any decisions on that. There have been no recommendations from the economic team on that yet. The first step is to make sure we get a good agreement, and when we get a good agreement, we'll make a recommendation to the president, and he'll consider that.
We have seen the Chinese economy get impacted. You're still talking about 6.4% growth, we think, but that is lower than some people think. What's your worry, or how concerning is it that the Chinese slowdown will impact the United States?
Well, there's no question that China is slowing down. They still have significant growth rates. We're beginning to see the impact on that on world growth. Our objective is not to slow down China. Our objective is to make sure that U.S. companies can do business in China and can do business fairly. So we're monitoring these issues.